construction happens everywhere, man. It touches everything we do, like from the roads that we travel on to the buildings that we work into, the house.
We should so cut.
We
should cut this bit out and use it as like a teaser for the podcast.
Yeah, but no, in all seriousness, like, I mean, I don't think there's an industry that touches more of what we do, from the food that we eat because of the supply chains and the roads and the way we get to our places of work, to the buildings that we're in. I mean, the built world touches everything, right? It's why I love it. I was telling you guys before we got on board, we had a customer, I think back in October, November, do a $49 credit card swipe. And just last week, I signed up on an enterprise deal of DataGrid. Just a few months later, almost the same enterprise value as Procore that they use every single day for every single one of their employees across their entire organization for project management.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode. Are you interested in finding out how companies scale past the $10 million ARR ceiling? This episode is one of the number of episodes forming part of our new go-to-market guide, which reveals how industry leaders scaled past the stubborn $10 million ARR mark using strategies specifically designed for AEC. Discover the proven land and expand blueprint, pricing models at work, and real case studies from companies with significant exits. To get your copy, visit www.bricks-bytes.com/GTM.
Tom, good morning, afternoon. I'll just repeat what I was saying off air, that I was messaging you this morning in the UK and you were responding to me, which was your evening. And now here we are. And it's your tomorrow, but my today. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's bright and early, 7 a.m. Here in San Francisco, California.
Nice. Good old time zones. Okay, Tom, so we're doing a mini series on go-to-market with some of the leaders of go-to-market within construction tech. And this, I believe, is recording number 3. So with that, could you give us a little introduction? What's your journey in sales and go-to-market within the construction tech industry?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, thanks for having me on. It's I follow your guys' podcast, really great content and thought leadership that you guys are putting out. So I'm excited.
Thank you.
Excited to be included on this. So yeah, I mean, a little bit about myself. In my career and my path to sales is kind of a unique one. I spent the first 10, 12 years of my career actually working in construction. So I held various roles as a real estate developer at the beginning of my career. I worked for a vertically integrated developer builder, building shopping centers. Actually also did a short stint for Google's WOOS program, real estate workplace group. So I made all the spaces look googly right around their IPO in around 2004. From there, I worked for some major and large GCs. So I worked for Bolt Construction, building a couple $1 billion hospitals. I worked for XL Construction, building the Apple campus. And then I moved over to DPR. I did a stint also at a company called URS, which is an owner representative firm. So they act on behalf of the owner, building some telemedicine buildings, and then the rebuild of Yosemite's park. So those are all distinct roles, actually. So an owner rep is different than a developer or like an owner, like at Google, because you're really acting on behalf of the owner. It's a very forgotten field, actually, that is a very important one. So like companies like JLL and Cushman Wakefield and CBRE have these roles that are like extensions of Google, for example, or Microsoft or like a bank, like Bank of America or Capital One. So I've held all those roles, and I worked most of my career in general contracting, so on site in construction trailers. And then DPR gave me a ring, a guy named Dean Reed over at DPR, and another gentleman named Atul Kanzode. And they were incubating an idea. This is like 2012, 2013, to build a lean planning tool in the cloud. So lean, was sticky note planning, pull planning, last planner system, all about reliable promising. And so they were putting that in a technology software on the cloud. And the cloud in 2012 was pretty nascent. And so they asked me to join to be a part of their go-to-market founding team. And then we took that, and that was part of an acquisition about a year or so later to Autodesk. And then that's kind of what springboarded my career into SaaS technology. And I've pretty much only stayed in construction technology since, because that's the industry that I love. That's the one I'm passionate about. I think there's a lot of problems to be solved there that technology can help with. And so, I did a few years at Autodesk, then went to a daily diary company called Headlight, sold to infrastructure DOT clients for a few years. And then from there, I joined a company called 3DR SiteScan, which was a drone mapping software. You guys have probably heard of Drone Deploy. They're a competitor to them. So we strictly, service the AEC and mining industries to help do photogrammetry using orthomosaics, to do cut fill analysis and photo mapping and things like that. And then the president of that company actually became an entrepreneur in residence at Lux, and then incubated the idea with two of his MIT Media Lab buddies for a 360 capture company called OpenSpace. So I was the third employee of OpenSpace pre-revenue, and then was with them for about 4.5 years to $1 billion or close to $1 billion valuation, which they are now. Yeah. And then I went to work for a PM platform for a few years, and then I started my own go-to-market construction technology consulting business. And that's when I came across these guys at DataGrid a few months ago. And, the rest is history. I decided to join them full time because I think the problem that they're solving with agentic AI, there's not a bigger problem to solve in this industry with the type of workflows and approach that AI is going to be solving for AEC for the rest of my lifetime, basically.
Very exciting.
So that's my short stint on my career and background and everything in between. So
yeah, that's a good one. I think if you we could go into data grid, but I will save and I will plug an episode that will be coming out with Tiago probably around about it'll be quite before this one gets released. But yeah, people should check that out. So shall we dive into like what makes a good construction tech go-to-market strategy? And it's quite a broad and open question, but you can handle it how you like.
Yeah. I mean, that is a very broad question. I think, the biggest thing with construction and construction tech is that, first of all, your product has to solve a real industry pain point, right? And so that's why I always start, and maybe it's from my lean training days, where it's like, what problem are we trying to solve? By the way, when I go off the screen, I'm still here, right?
You're still here.
You mean great?
Yeah,
I
think you are.
Okay, excellent. So I think, it all starts, and really this is the approach to any sort of sales that you do. Doesn't matter what your career is, whether it's construction technology or you're selling another SaaS tech platform. I'm here in the Silicon Valley. There's so many of them that are popping up every day. Is that when you want to really solve a problem for the industry, and this is why OpenSpace, for example, it caught fire. And I like to take all the credit for that growth from 0 to $1 billion. I think by the time I left, we were doing we grew rapidly. It was like the classic, triple, quadruple, double situation while I was there. And hence them raising 200 plus million in venture capital. And they had just had a really good product that worked and solved a real problem, right? And it didn't need training. and it didn't need someone like a lot of change management of like, how do I use this technology? People just got it, they understood it, and then they were able to just use it, and they were use it very simply, right? One of the core values of OpenSpace is keep it simple. And so when you solve problems and you make people's lives easier, I think that's what creates the spinning flywheel, because there's a lot of great ideas out there, and there's a lot of solutions that are looking for problems, and there's not a lot of solutions that are solving problems. I think there's been an explosion of ConTech since I've joined the industry. I remember actually bringing Tracy Young. I was friends with Tracy Young and Dustin Devan, and I actually worked at the same GC, in the 2000s. And I remember, Dustin and I always wanted to change the world, and we wanted to get out and figure, in the industry that we loved, and Tracy for that matter as well. And I remember bringing Tracy to my job site when it was an MVP. It was just her and Ralph and another guy named Ryan Seton G, and Ralph, her husband, right? I remember they showed up to our job site at Apple. They were going to give us the software for free, actually. All we needed to do was provide the iPads. And I was like, whoa, problem solved. We're at Apple. That should be pretty easy. And I just remember my PX and PM, and I won't say their names. They didn't get it. Like, they were like, don't waste my time like that again. I brought in the whole team, and I was like, guys, this is going to save us so much. Like, look at the rendering and how fast these plans can render. And back then it was just a plan viewer, pretty much. It didn't have all the bells and whistles that we know PlanGrid, or now Autodesk Construction Cloud, has. And I remember thinking, man, this industry is broken. Like, they don't get it. Like, they're not adopting technology. We've seen all the stats. Like, they're not embracing it. I mean, the industry's not ready. And, that's when I set out and luckily was able to find, Dean Reed, and they were solving some real important problems around a workflow that I love, which is lean construction. That's what I've done my whole career in. Is lean's all about driving out waste and delivering more value, right? That's all lean is at its core, is how do you drive out waste? And I think the best way I see to do that in construction is through the implementation of technology. And so, I think if you align with that kind of approach, this is a very much of a relationship driven business. It's all about the handshake. It's all about looking in the eye. So getting on site, leveraging those relationships, building that trust. There's a lot of skeptics in construction. And so you kind of have to win them over with, like, the question is, how does this make my life easier? And if you can answer that very quickly with very quick speed to value, I call it, then you have a winning product and idea. That's just gonna, grow, take on like wildfire and infect the rest of the organization in the industry. Because oftentimes, things take a little bit of time in construction, right? So there has to be this idea of like developing proof of values, I call them, not proof of concepts. Like, supposedly your software works, and so you're just proving out the value now to those clients and those customers. And then a lot of educating of the market. I mean, I feel like half the time what I'm doing with AI is just educating people around AI. You guys have some great thought leadership that you put out there around, like, understanding all these 3-letter acronyms and words, and but breaking it down in layman's terms. And I think that's a unique positioner for me in the industry, because I've held all these roles from owner developer to owner rep to GC, building every type of building except for maybe a bridge in construction. So I understand all of their workflows. And I think that gives me positions me uniquely to really connect with them, because I can describe in excruciating detail some of the pain that they're experiencing on the job site, because frankly, it hasn't changed much since the 2000s and 2010s, from how they do their work on a daily basis. And so I take a real consultative approach in the way that I work with clients, and I really try to get after, like, how can I add more value? How can I solve this problem for you? How can I make your life easier? So, I think it's a combination of all those things. And kind of bringing them through a really consultative process to an understanding of how much value that this technology can bring their workflows in their organization.
Hey, Tom, I'm just very curious. What's the speed to value of DataGrid?
Speed to value?
Yeah.
I mean, you can sign up with a free account, start using AI, building your own agents, and within minutes, like you can get, answers to questions that would take a while. You can get an analytical thought partner that is really working alongside you to solve real problems in your industry. And it's simple and easy to use. It's very intuitive, has a great UX, UI. I mean, I was telling you guys before we got on board, we had a customer, I think like back in October, November, like do a $49 credit card swipe. And just last week, I signed up on an enterprise deal of DataGrid. Just a few months later, almost the same enterprise value as Procore that they use every single day for every single one of their employees across their entire organization for project management.
Beautiful.
So like when you get that kind of speed to value of being able to easily try it, get in there, see the value on like, hey, this saved me 20 minutes. Hey, this saved me an hour. Hey, I just loaded in all of my RFPs and then loaded in this 300 questionnaire, like for this new RFP from this client, and it filled it out in 5 minutes. Something that would take me, one client said, 8 people, 2 weeks to do.
Crazy. Hey, Tom, what would you say are the key components of a successful GTM strategy?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think those are it. The key components is identifying pain, building trust in relationships, understanding your ICP, and understanding the difference between your ICP and what's important to them, right? Because this is an industry that is, paradoxically, one of the most collaborative industries in the world. I mean, think about it. How many organizations or industries can bring together 40 plus different companies, right, to collaborate on a single building project? And when I mean 40 companies, you're talking about engineers, architects, designers, consultants, owners reps, general contractors, trades, right? At least 40, but yet the most fragmented industry there is, because all of these people have their own tools and processes and systems and, and frankly, motivations, right? Like they have to, that's why it's often adversarial, right? With contracting styles, like with this design bid build, right? Where they're trying to protect their own piece of the pie. So they're expected to come together to build a building, all these fragmented, disparate organizations with disparate tools, and they're supposed to collaborate in a very effective way for one goal. Like manufacturing doesn't have this problem. Like companies like Apple don't have this problem. They control the entire supply chain and life cycle from start to finish, from product to, ideation to marketing to sales, to supply chain. Maybe they have suppliers outside of Apple, but this is a very complex industry, and projects like mission critical projects like data centers or hospitals or schools or whatever, they're very complex with a lot of different people. I was just talking to a project yesterday. It blew my mind. It's a $10 billion project. I can't say anything much about it. It's 3 contractors, not even in a tri-venture, they said. They made it a point to say, I was like, oh, like a tri-venture. They're like, no. We're 3 different contractors trying to build this one campus. That's the size of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Okay. That will have 10,000 workers on the job site, that will do a delivery every 1 second for the next 6 years or 4 years or 5 years. They said 600,000 deliveries on this job, right? Imagine the amount of coordination that is taking place on a project of that size. That is the size of Manhattan, by the way. With 10,000 skilled laborers and workers on the job, with a delivery every second for 4 years. It's wild, man. It's wild to think about the scale,
so many people,
the coordination necessary.
Yeah. So what about segmentation, and how do you identify your ICP?
For me personally, or for generally for
generally, yeah.
You can use the example of data grid, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, so I just identified all the stakeholders, right, in a construction process. So each of those stakeholders have different motivations and they have different roles. So you have to understand that like an owner developer or even an owner rep, right, that's acting on behest of the owner to ensure that there's their fiduciary responsibility to make sure this project's delivered on time and under budget. Like they have a totally different set of objectives and criterias and KPIs and things they care about than maybe a general contractor, right? Who's actually is responsible for the means and methods of delivering the work, who has a totally different set of objectives as the trades, like the MEP trades, the framing trades, all of the, for every probably for every project, there's going to be at least 20 subcontractors, right? Trades that are going to be working on that job. And so like, you have to understand like from a persona perspective, like what are each of those people's goals and objectives and how do you align to the problem that you're solving for each of those personas? And even within the general contractor, there's COOs and like with data grid, COOs, they maybe care about like efficiency and productivity and bottom line or top line growth, right? Like a project executive is going to care about, the person that's like managing the project is going to care about like making the client happy and like, executive dashboards on productivity for the project and for the team. Project engineer is just going to, the person that's like the doer, the person that I was for a number of years doing the work, managing the trades, they're going to care about like, well, a lot of these Zoomers, they're going to care about lifestyle, right? How do I get the best tech in my hands so that I can do my job more efficiently? Because they're all about efficiency too, right? And they want to, they grew up with these in their hand, unlike the aging workforce of like maybe like a 30, 40-year-old grizzled superintendent, where we're just trying to make him smarter with AI, right? We just want to make him get that information quicker. So he's not like doing things the old way. And then, so like, that's what I mean by segmentation. That's just within the general contractor, right? And then you have like different personas within the owner and within the trades. And I talk all the way from executive level people that are CTOs, CIOs, people that are caring about the business as a whole. I talked to all the way down to the crew foreman in the trade that cares just about like his crew's productivity and making sure that like when he shows up on the job site that he has the materials and the equipment and the information necessary to do his job. Because like, union, non-union, like these guys have different motivations to like get their work done. And so, the biggest thing that, the trades people hate is just not being productive with their time or showing up on the job site and their work's not ready for them to complete because the electrician or framer is not done with their scope. So the mechanical guy can't come in and do the work. So how do you tightly couple that to get reliable promising to create a flow on the project, right? And I'm using a lot of lean terms because that's what I've been trained in and that's what I try to teach people in. But sorry, there's like sun's coming up right now in San Francisco, so it's
if you need to change the blind, go for it.
But yeah, that's what I mean, like understanding personas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Martin?
So I just want to touch maybe a little bit on data grid actually. So what are the ICPs for you guys for data grid?
Yeah, we hit every single value chain in construction. So we're not just a field tool that's meant, it's a great field tool, right? But all those personas I just described, you can use, and I can talk about data grid, but I'll talk about agentic AI in general, because I know that you spoke to Tiago, my CEO, and that piece is coming out. And so there'll be hopefully some base understanding and people read the news and they understand like what this movement of agentic is and how it's going to transform their business. But like for me, like I focus on AECO, right? Like architecture, engineering, construction, and owners. And so for me, like I sell to each one of those. In fact, today I got the green light to go forward with a building parts manufacturer that's going to go on with us enterprise wide. And, they're seeing this, the value they're seeing as a building parts manufacturer is like they have catalogs and catalogs of piping data. They want to organize it. They want to become an AI driven manufacturer. And so what does that mean? That means that they are everything they're doing. And I'm not just talking about like Copilot and, finding information quickly. That's great, but RAG kind of falls short in that respect. Like a simple question and answer is not going to move the needle for these people. They really need to be able to do their jobs more efficiently. And they got to be able to do it like quicker, like doing more with less, right? In this industry that we have with a massive amount of shortage of labor and skilled labor and knowledge labor, right? It's like there's a massive need for this. So Agentic could have not come at a better time. And so for owners, they want to be better, they want their bottom line, their pro formas to pencil, right? Their cap rates and their IRR and like everything they're doing with like thinking about and when they see a piece of land, what they can do with it, how they get the permitting, how to streamline the design process, the DD, the SD, the CD phases, how they can work with their extended team to iterate much faster, both in pre-con and then well into construction. And then, when you get to the building process, right, the whole group of stakeholders that you can service with AI, like general contractors, obviously, to build better buildings, coming down to, again, schedule, cost, and quality and safety, right? Like, how do you get home safely to their families and mitigate and manage risk? I mean, at the bottom line, all of these people, all they're trying to do is mitigate risk, right? And they do it in different ways. And then to protect their bottom line, so they're a viable business. And so AI is like data grid is solving problems for each of those different people by doing things meaningful that, again, key back to what their important metrics are for success. And so for a builder, like those success metrics, and you have to uncover it in the process, are going to be different than a set of success metrics for a trade or for an owner or for an owner rep. Like a lot of the times the owner rep, frankly, just wants to get a better grasp over the entire project as a whole, because they're looking at not just hard costs of the GC, which the GC cares about, they're looking at soft costs as well. They're trying to manage their set of consultants, like the engineer, the architect, the structural, the geotechnical engineer, all the other cast of consultants that are working with the owner. Right. But I don't know if I'm getting too specific, but like you can see it just doesn't stop at the GC as like a question and answer field tool. Like for AI, this is like workflows and like full agency workflows that we're working across the value chain, solving problems at different parts, because you have the design process, construction process, you have the operations process. So like there's asset managers, right, that are taking over the building after it's been complete and being able to find those like, that manual to the, the HVAC equipment that kind of broke down, and understanding like, okay, well, how do I fix this? How do I get the information I need to go and like repair this, or understand the warranty limits of this piece of equipment that was delivered that's very expensive, right? And being able to manage the property. I mean, there's a lot more existing buildings than there are like construction projects in the world right now.
Yeah, it
So
makes
there's
sense.
a whole workflow and around the commissioning and actual operation of these buildings for 30, 40, 50 years afterwards.
I suppose what the point you're making is there is like, if you've got a good product, your ICP can actually be very broad, and maybe it's quite difficult to identify a specific one, especially in the early stages. It comes down to a little bit of experimentation to be able to identify that.
I mean, just to give you an example of the 4 or 5 enterprise deals I closed just in the last week, 2 of them were electrical contractors. One of them was a small general contractor out of South Carolina. And another was a building parts manufacturer. And then one today I just sent literally 5 minutes before this call was a developer, not a builder, a developer of multifamily housing units. All using agentic AI, all using data to make better informed decisions.
Beautiful.
So how is it,
Tom, could you tell us perhaps how maybe just touch very briefly upon how buying processes differ between like large to mid to small, And who should does it make sense to go over after enterprise deals in the early days?
Well, also main point is like, how do you go about go to market when you have such a differentiated potential customer persona?
Yeah, I mean,
Lots
so
of questions.
that's like for early stage startups, that might be the kiss of death, trying to be everything to everyone, right? I mean, I have the luxury of using a software that literally benefits everyone, but like let's take OpenSpace for example. Like early days, like I focused on the large ENR, right? The top 400 ENR, because those are the ones that are usually buyers of technology. And I sold project to project. And so they usually controlled the budget to buy this technology. And they got the approval, obviously, from the owner to do so. I mean, now, there's some more advanced plays where you can get the owner to like spec this in, but they're not going to get value from, they're not going to be the ones using photo documentation or 360 technology because they just put in the contract, you have a contractual obligation to capture this site on a regular basis, right? And they're not going to deliver the means and methods to do that. So it's really up to the general contractor to go then and use the solution to, fulfill that, contractual requirement. And so that's why a lot of the times, like with OpenSpace, I was strictly focusing on the GCs in early days. There's this like desire and want to like sell to the big names because like we work in an industry of social proof and like, oh man, DPR's using it, Suffolk's using it. Like they're the most advanced GCs there are. Like I should be looking at this too if I want to be advanced just like them. And so there's something to be said for like, there's something to be said for like having those big names on there because they create a lot of social proof, which is, just like a lot of industries, but I think our industry more than others, we're driven on like, have people used it before? Did they get value from it? What was that value? But I also worked at Autodesk and did a lot of competitive analysis on Procore when I was there, like deep analysis on Procore. And, they took an approach of maybe not necessarily going after the top 20 or 50 ENR. Like they focused on the mid-market, right? And they dominated the mid-market and SMB actually. And they were able to get massive groundswell and decisions made much quicker because when you have a firm that's maybe doing 500 million or less, or maybe 100 million or 200 million in annual construction volume, like those people tend to be very quick to get enterprise deals. So instead of like a 12 to 18 month or longer, 24 month longer enterprise cycle that you have with some of these bigger firms, like take top 20 ENR, like you can close an enterprise deal with a mid-market or SMB like I did in like 1 or 2 months. Right. And then that gets the ARR flywheel spinning for you to show adaptability. And when you think about construction, 90% of the annual construction volume in the United States is like, or 85 or something, is not done by the top 50 ENR or 100 ENR or something. I don't know what the stat is, but the majority of it is done by the mid-market. I'm talking like regional firms that are doing work in like Cleveland, Ohio, or like, Nashville, Tennessee, or just Seattle region, or just the Portland region. And those firms power most of the growth and the construction volume that you see in the United States, very similar in Europe and other parts of the world too. I mean, yeah, there's the Bouygues and Vinci in Europe that are like massive, like Bechtels, that are doing like these, multi-billion-dollar LNG or nuclear plants or just these massive infrastructure projects. And that's why they're always number one, number two on the ENR. But like, it takes a long time to do like true enterprise plays with those companies because they have a lot of systems and processes and a lot of levels of approval you need to get through and buy-in. And so that's why proof of values are so valuable. That's how I eventually closed an enterprise deal with Turner. I had to sell, I don't know, 45 different business units across 117 projects at Turner before I even got into conversations around enterprise with their corporate group. But it was good because they all have their own P&L. They have their own budgets for each project. And so like selling project to project wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Now, would I have rather spent that time? I think 1 month I had, and I'm not even exaggerating, I had my SDR counted up. I had 40 different meetings with Turner Construction alone in 1 month.
Wow.
That's
So
just
that's like
different
two per working day, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was wild, man.
Yes.
It was,
Yeah.
I mean, and that was like, those are different groups, different business units, different like PXs across the entire, Turner organization.
Tom, quick question for you. You mentioned this proof of value concept. Could you just explain briefly what that is? Do you charge for it too? Or how does it work?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. Like I'm a huge fan of the freemium model. So OpenSpace has this, DataGrid has this. So like maybe it's a limited set of tools. A lot of SaaS companies do freemium, right? So it's just the ability for the user to get in there and see it for themselves and touch it and go in the UI and UX and like maybe upload some documents, maybe do a couple of captures for OpenSpace. I think they limit it to like 10 minutes of video walk a month. And you're like, wow, this actually works. Like I want to unlock these premium features now. I want BIM compare in OpenSpace, or I want to be able to connect it to my Autodesk or Procore or CMIC or my ERP systems in DataGrid. And, I want the BIM overlay or, whatever it is, but like you have this, like get them in the product, getting them using it, getting them believers, because I hate to say it, builders, we got to touch it. We got to feel it. We got to see it, for us to like make sure this is real and not vaporware. And then once you do that, then you have like, you unlock premium features. Another company that does this well is a change order management platform called ClearStory. And, like the GC can start using it, give it to the subs. Hey, you want to get paid? You got to use ClearStory. Subs start using it to get paid on change orders. And then before you know it, they're like, wow, like this is a free part. Like, I wonder what the paid version is. And they have a lot of virality built into their tool, right? Because of that. I think DataGrid's the same way. Like get in, you get 1,000 credits or whatever it is, 100 credits, and start using it, maybe ask it a few questions. And then you, as a company, get to understand like buyer's intent, right? Like they're already a qualified customer. They're coming in like naturally through like natural means.
That's cool.
And and you already have someone and you can understand some of the questions they're asking and how they're using the platform. So now you can guide them to like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or you can start to consult them and be like, hey, did you know you can do this with the tool and you can do this and you can build an SOP and you can build this field agent or this like submittal review checker agent. And like, then they're like, wow, like this is really good. Like, I didn't realize that, but you get it. It's like, it's true product-led growth. Like companies that, if you look at any unicorn company, I'll just say outside of tech, right? You look at their like secret to success, like Slack, for example, it's a lot of product-led growth and a lot of word of mouth. And it's like people like, you can get into Slack and it only saves the last 30 days of conversation. And then you want some advanced features. Or like Dropbox or Box would be a better one for our industry, because like people will be like, hey, I've just sent you a Box file. And they're like, oh yeah. And you can open it up easily now and you can look at it, but then they cap you at gigabytes, right? And this whole construction volume model, frankly, like we need to move away from that as an industry. I know kind of Autodesk and Procore kind of set the bar there. And frankly, I followed suit with OpenSpace. But like this whole charging a percentage of construction volume is just, in my opinion,
disgusting.
Not the way the industry needs to go. And we've set a bad habit and standard here. Like it really needs to be more of a consumption usage, or like, the more you use it, the more value you're supposedly getting out of it. And then the more you should pay because you're getting a lot of value. Or a seat-based, like I think seat-based can work as well, for a charging model.
What about just a flat
or just a flat
rate?
fee? Yeah, like a flat fee. So like, because for general contractors and owners and developers, like they want to know their exposure, like, and they don't want to be penalized for being more productive or efficient. Like, oh yeah, I was able to grow my company's construction volume double over last year. Okay, your price now is double.
Yeah, well done, thank you.
You
made us more money.
Yeah.
And I done nothing.
we help you grow. Like, you should pay us more money now. It's like, and I get why Procore's done it. And I know they're super happy and proud about their, construction volume model. And I'm not here to like even naysay on anyone that does that. I'm just saying, like, it should be value centric. It should be value based. And you should partner with companies to like help uncover and deliver that value. And so anyway, we can have a whole like 2 hours pricing, by the way.
I just think actually that the reason that they can charge based on the construction volume is that there's no competition around them. And that's the only reason they can do that. Because once there's more players doing similarly good job, then
there is this competition coming.
Yeah, but
there's lots of competition. I mean, I'll tell you, Autodesk, now what they've done with Construction Cloud,
I've heard,
is impressive.
Very good things.
I've seen a lot of customers like start to sign up and use Construction Cloud. I mean, I know Autodesk software incredibly well, and yeah, Procore ate their lunch for a few years while they had a better mousetrap and they solved better problems. But that's what they did. They solved better problems and they created more functionality for the field. But Autodesk is on par, if not better, in some areas now. And then you have other tools that are spinning up. Like, I just found out about this tool called like Pro Planner or something. It's like a light version of a PM software. I mean, you have Kahua that's absolutely dominating the federal space and the FedRAMP space and the infrastructure space. And you have other tools like eBuilder legacy tools that are really doing a good job on the legacy front with some big owners, that are mandating this down. Or Aconex was a master of that, acquired by Oracle now, like on big infrastructure projects, like outside of the United States. They were able to develop like a pretty good, sales motion for how they sold PM software. I sold the PM software for 2 years, so I know the PM market pretty well. Like, Procore is not the only player in the game. And frankly, there are other alternatives now, and people are seeing that.
It's coming.
Hey, Tom.
Okay, not to hijack that little bit of it. Go on, Mark.
Yeah.
I can't see you via camera.
Yeah,
so
sorry,
I can't see
my
what
internet is-
I can't read your cues.
Yeah. So Tom, so when you're around and sell these deals to the largest one, so on the example like you mentioned to Turner, is there a FOMO happening amongst others? Like then you mentioned it's like you mentioned that Turner is using our software. Are other contractors, like, is it easier conversation when trying to sell to folks, or that doesn't validate the proof of value in this case?
I mean, I think it's just one step in the process. Of course, like I said in the beginning, like, social proof is incredibly important. And if there's leading general contractors that are using this and getting value at it, and there's good case studies and stories from that, then there's something to be said that, like, hey, this technology works. And, whether people want to believe it or not, all kind of general contractors in this whole world, like, buildings are buildings. Like, data centers are different than like an industrial warehouse or a hospital or hospitality or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like we're all trying to, like, we all have the same pain points and problems in the industry. But I would say that, like, that's only a piece of it. I think sometimes it's like more important. Like, I'll take Boston, for example, because that's like a beat that I ran at Autodesk. Like, when you go to like Lee Kennedy or Commodore Builders and you say like Suffolk is using this, like, sure, like there's a little FOMO, but like, it's like companies that they compete with in their market, for example, that are using this, I think is more important because, like, everybody wants an edge, right? Everybody wants, in their RFP process or when they're winning work, they want to go and they want to be able to be like, yeah, we're bringing the best tools, processes, and technology and team to the table. And like, and what a part of that, like, winning the work process, like, okay, well, what tools and technology are you bringing? And if like Commodore is coming in there, or Lee Kennedy, and they're saying like, hey, we got OpenSpace, or we're using data pipelines from DataGrid, and we're organizing everything in charts and graphs, and we're able to do visualizations in Power BI. That's coupled with their actual reputation of like building, right? Like, they've done this type of structure, which is probably the most important. Like, I've done hospitals or I've done multifamily and I know how to build them. And here's my list of projects that I've built. Like, this is just kind of like a little bit of an edge that they can get, and really to also retain and attract top talent. because like I said, these Zoomers are, Generation Z are like, they're born with technology like through their blood. And so it's like, do you want to go work for a company that is on like a legacy platform from like the 1990s? Or do you want to be in the, the new UX, UI, easy to use, like easy to facilitate your job so you can go and, hang out with your friends at happy hour instead of having to do change orders and submittals and RFIs or trailer for like, till 7 p.m. at night? It's like, no. Like, so there's a lot of reasons why companies do this. But I wouldn't say FOMO is like the main reason.
Okay. Can we go into some tools and metrics? Yeah, most important KPIs and tools and metrics to track, Tom. And then let's go to tools, because we had a good chat before we hit record about some of the stack.
Yeah, I mean, so like metrics in terms of like a construction technology company, or metrics and KPIs in terms of like your client or what's important to them?
Construction tech sales strategy. So like, yeah.
How do you measure success
LTV
of go-to-market?
That's easy.
Sales.
Dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
We're on the same page.
Done that one then.
I mean, like it really is down to this. It's like, and when I say that, I don't mean to say it from like a classic sales, like, oh, give me more money. I'm like talking about like, if your client is willing to pay for your software, like pay you real money, right? That means it's like valuable to them. So like the first metric that any company should try to like, because there's this like thing in Silicon Valley and joke. I don't know if you've seen that show Silicon Valley. They're like, no revenue. Like don't do it. Like that'll mess up our fundraising. The reality is like, because they're like trying to build like a viral model or whatever, get eyeballs and stuff. It's like, those are like more companies outside of construction that they're joking about, like the Facebook's early days.
Don't show revenue because it's never going to be enough to investors.
Yeah. It's never going to be enough. Yeah. And once you start doing revenue, then they can start to tie a multiple to it. Right. And so that's why the joke is like, no revenue. But like in construction technology, like you want to get revenue as quickly as possible. So like even getting them in a small paid pilot or like a design partnership where they're paying you real money because they see there's value in it. And then you can start to measure other things over time, like pipeline velocity is pretty important. So like sales cycle, like understanding like from the time you have an initial meeting, from the time that you're able to send it through all its phases of the buying cycle to like getting a close. And then of course, win rate, I have these many demos, how many lead to those opportunities, how many get through the pipeline, from like a discovery to a technical validation to a proposal to a win. Like that's an important, like lifetime customer value or CAC, like customer acquisition cost are some important metrics as well. Like how much does it cost you to actually get a new logo, right? So those are some things that venture capital looks at. I mean, like growth is the bottom line, like metric though. So it's like, when did you start? How much ARR? It's all about the ARR game in software, as you guys know. So how much ARR are you generating? And then, sorry, is there a little background noise or are you guys good?
Someone using the tool.
Yeah. I got construction going on here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe we can pause and edit this out.
Yeah.
Stop for a second here.
Yeah, cool.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
Nice.
Sorry about that, guys.
Okay.
Hopefully that you can edit that part out. I got talk about construction. I got my whole downstairs is being renovated right now, and it's literally they're doing work right below me in the laundry room.
That's what we said. We like it. I think you added it. You done it on purpose for added effect, right?
Yeah, maybe. Construction happens everywhere, man. It touches everything we do. Like from the roads that we travel on to the buildings that we work into, the house.
We should so cut.
We
should so cut this bit out and use it as like a teaser for the podcast.
Yeah, but no, in all seriousness, like, I mean, I don't think there's an industry that touches more of what we do, from the like the food that we eat because of the supply chains and the roads and the way we get to our like places of work, to the buildings that we're in. I mean, the built world touches everything, right? It's why I love it. And, you know, I'm going off on a little tangent here, but like the reason why I chose this industry, when a lot of my classmates from Stanford were like going into banking or consulting and making a lot of money and, you know, going on and, you know, doing whatever they're doing now, you know, spreadsheets, you know,
Corner
like,
office.
you know, changing numbers from this spreadsheet to that spreadsheet, high frequency trading, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the reason why I chose construction is because there's something visceral about this industry that, like, and this might sound corny, but like the hospital that my daughter was born in, I built.
Nice.
You know, like, which is kind of cool to say. Like, I was on the general contracting team that delivered that hospital and like did all the, you know, the coordination for years, 4 years in design and then 4 or 5 years in construction. And as I'm like traveling around my city or other cities, like I can say like, oh man, I was a part of that project with OpenSpace, and I can point to it. And there's something real about that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. A lot
No
of
one
people
could
say
ever
this.
take away from me. And that's why I love this industry, because at the end of the day, it's like, you know, whenever I see like a construction worker in a hard hat and a vest, and I see them, you know, packing up their lunch and going home for the day, I'm like, hey, maybe I was a part of making his or her life better, or getting home safely to his family or her family. And like, you know, there's something real about that, because at the end of the day, we're only on this earth for a limited time. So it's like, what kind of impact are we making?
That's true.
How are we leaving this a better place than we found it? And so that's what kind of like gets me going in the morning, is like, how do I make these people's lives easier? And that's kind of my central, you know, calling
Mantra.
card, whatever,
Yeah.
like mantra. Yeah. To like, you know, keep the fire alive, and like why I was up till 1 a.m., you know, chatting with you on LinkedIn last night. And up
Yeah.
6 a.m. for this this podcast this
That
morning.
was just for Bricks and Bytes, man. Come on.
Yeah. Tom?
For sure.
Hey, Tom, shall we go back to tools? Because so yeah, what tools should people have in their GTM? And then I think it'll be interesting to say about this. What do we call it? The GTM AI consultant? Did you call it?
Agentic AI SDR.
well, like a go-to market. Yeah, like I call it a go-to market engineer.
Engineer, that's the one.
So what used to be called an SDR, like a sales development representative or a business developer, right? Someone that goes and finds leads. I mean, there's, and really this full stack AE, right? This full stack account executive that is actually handling the whole process from start to finish, and then leveraging tools now instead of like the traditional, like, okay, go find the lead, do your normal channels, use Zoom info, use outreach, put them in sequences, like go attend trade conferences, like talk to people, have a big booth, have a presence, like, you know, do thought leadership, get your PR going, get an E&R, you know, go get an article in Bluebeam, like, you know, whatever it is, like, you know, all that stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it's not important, right? But like, you know, product-led growth, like having a really good product-led growth, I think is more important. Like being able to, again, get in there and use the tool like I was talking to earlier. But then like having this concept of like this really smart, because the world is changing with agentic AI, right? And like my company happens to do agentic AI for construction. And so we're changing constructions in very meaningful and impactful ways. Like becoming almost a catalyst for the way that people change the way they do work, right? Like completely they do work. And so in the same way, agentic is doing that for every single industry outside of construction, and mine in particular, right? They started with coding and computer scientists. Like they basically wrote a program to replace their own jobs. So like 50% of AI is being used to write code now, and like, you know, just much more efficient at that. But you know, as we expand into my industry and then my profession of sales, like I'm seeing the advent of what I call a go-to-market engineer, which is someone that is more intelligent about how they prospect and connect with leads and find you know, opportunities, like using tools like Clay or Instantly or Ava, right? And these are agentic AI sales tools.
How to find
right?
people like
Not
that?
the old- What do you mean?
Huh?
You just train
It's
them.
an
Yeah, just
agent,
trade them.
dude. It's not a
Yeah,
real
and
person.
they're all AI agents, man. Like
Oh,
Ava is literally an AI automated agent that is calling you and having a conversation.
I could
okay.
just see Martin being like, I can't find any of these people anywhere.
Well, no, because like this description you're providing is someone exactly I'm looking for in our little business. But yeah, so you're talking about next level, that this is kind of automated behavior, yeah, and much more
Yes.
intelligent.
Go on clay.com. I think it's the like leading one at the moment.
Clay, yeah, Clay is the big one. Yeah, I like Ava, but anyways, I'm using some of these. I'm not using all of them. I'm just, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm like. I got like a bunch of really focused, because I'm a sales leader, so people are always trying to sell me software, and you know, which is funny because I'm always like, ooh, that looks cool. I'm like the easiest to sell sometime, you know, and but like the reality is like I see messages all the time of like obvious sequences, like using outreach, right? Like, hi, Tom, like, you know, hi, Tom, comma, I noticed you are the head of growth at, you know,
Yeah.
DataGrid.
Company.
Like, you know, we have a tool that can find leads for you and can do this, this, and this. And have you thought about like that? And then I get like an email like 4 days later, hey, here's an example of a company that's been using us. And then I get like 3 more emails and I'm like, hey, you think after the 5th email, you get the picture? Like maybe I'm not interested, but like they forgot about the sequence and they just kept me in there, you know?
Plus,
But
you stay on it, right? Because you might learn a few cool little phrases.
This
and stuff
approach
to use.
is based on assumption that this is a numbers game, and it works for very small sample. Sorry, for the very large sample, and you get a small amount of companies that you can really sell to.
Connect with. Yeah, it's the classic MailChimp, like Pardot, Marketo, like send it out to all of our leads, something like interesting, maybe some thought leadership, maybe some new product updates. And someone might be like, ooh, and click on it, be like, oh, I'm going to talk to these guys. They're doing some cool things now. And like, you know, they're nurturing those leads. And there's definitely a need for marketing, you know, and like, I'm not saying you should not attend trade shows. That's like still to this day, the number one way to get leads in construction is going to trade shows. Because again, people like meeting in person. We're very much a relationship driven business and we like shaking the hands and doing all that stuff. But I'm saying you can augment it with like a tool, for example, that crawls the internet, looks at your LinkedIn profile. Like for me, like Gong, even though they never closed me, they were great. Like they sent me this little pencil holder, you know, during the sales process with me. And because they saw on my profile that I attended Stanford and that I love Stanford sports, right? And so they had like a Sendio, I think they used, or Census, or one of these tools that you can like send gifts to people, like really meaningful gifts. And they had that.
But they didn't close you.
They didn't. Well, that's a whole story that like that's a whole nother story that I don't want to get into because I love Gong. I think Gong is like I ended up actually get it. They got me 2 years later. Okay. Like I switched over from Chorus to Gong. I just got a sweet package with Zoom info and Chorus, like, you know, kind of together. And so like, but they ended up getting me. So, because like, you know, there's a lot of tools now on the market for conversational intelligence. I mean, there are so many tools out there that do like 90% of what Gong does at like half the cost. Right? But Gong just did an unbelievable. I mean, they have probably the case study and go-to-market teams. Like they're probably one of the best. Like there's this guy, Chris Orlob, who's like a sales consultant now that just does this full time. You guys should follow him on LinkedIn. He's got a great sales go-to-market like specialist on how to implicate pain, how to peel back the onion, how to ask really good questions during discovery, which is the most important part of a sales process. I've learned a lot from Chris and, you know, from other thought leaders. Chris Orlob, Orlob, I think. He does a lot of thought leadership on LinkedIn. But like, I mean, it's not like he's saying anything groundbreaking or like it's any of his original stuff. I mean, some of it is, like, don't get me wrong. But he's just using sound sales strategy on how to become a thought partner and a trusted confidant and advisor, and how to implicate pain by peeling back the onion, and how to ask really good questions during the discovery process so that you can understand if there's a deal there or not, and if there's an actual pain and problem to solve. Because I mean, that is really what you need to focus on, and really good questions. And he has a great line of questioning. He gives 98% of his stuff away for free, but he has really good lines of questioning that, you know, companies and AEs should be like latch onto, on like how to actually get to the right decision makers, how to multi-thread, how to, like, you know, restate challenges in the way that the customer understands it, so that you can help them, like, hey, if we solve this problem, you know, how important that to you, or what kind of ripple effect this has in the rest of your business, or how does this, you know, who else does this impact, or how would you, like, what's helping you solve this problem now as opposed to dealing with it later, like to create urgency. And, you know, a lot of great discovery questions, like impact questions, I call them, that really core back to their business problems and needs, and align it with their like objectives and goals.
Beautiful.
So, I mean, there's like tons of them on. I follow like, so that's just one. I don't want to just give him.
Yeah.
So there's
That's good.
there's like dozens of these thought leaders on LinkedIn.
Guys, we have like 10 minutes. So shall we do like some quick fire questions?
Quick fire.
So do quick
Let's do
fire.
it.
What makes okay, in fact, I had another one here. What is the right resource allocation perhaps for new business versus expansion? Like how much effort do you put on existing customers versus acquiring new ones?
I think early stage. Well, I mean, for me, dude, I follow another guy named Jeb Blunt, and he's always like one more.
Oh, I know him.
Yeah,
Fanatical
Jeb,
prospecting. Yeah.
he's a friend of mine. Yeah.
Okay.
In Texas. I actually use his own tactics to become his friend. I found that he was in town for like a big deployment in San Francisco with one of his clients, and then I like messaged him through the omni channel, like Facebook, and then I LinkedIn him, and then I did this, and then I said, hey, Jeb, I know you like steak. There's a great steakhouse. I'd love to take you there. And then we just became friends from there. It's pretty funny.
Nice.
But I would say that like early stage, like Jeb will say, you never stop prospecting. Like you should always just be like, you know, new, like fill the pipeline. Gives you more confidence, you know, get it in there. I think early stage, you want to focus obviously a lot on new business. And then maybe like an 80-20, like get your initial clients and then learn how you can expand them, especially if your ACV, you know, annual contract volume is like large. Like you may not need a lot of customers to become a, you know, substantially high growth business. I just met with there was a go-to market leaders happy hour last week. I got to meet my actual idol, this guy Rahul Vora and his brother Gaurav. They started a company called Superhuman, which is like my favorite app by far that I use. And so I got to like meet them. I got to meet the head of go-to-market for Rippling. I got to meet the head of go-to-market for like just a number of other like big name companies that you guys would know. Like they were all at this little happy hour that I was at. And one of them was leaving her company. I forgot the name of it, but it was like a Series C company that had 750 employees, like 250 million ARR. And she was leaving them as head of go-to-market to join the Series A company that only had 6 customers. But like their ACV was like $150,000, whereas like her previous ACV was like 10 or 15,000. And even though they had like thousands and tens of thousands of customers, she's like, hey, I don't need a lot of customers. I can just grow my existing customers and add more value to them. She has a really interesting project with pharmaceutical companies and clinical trials. And like, you know, like one customer like Gilead can like buy their product, but then continue to cross-sell and grow the product within the organization. So it just depends on the type of company. But like, I would say generally speaking, like obviously early stage growth, new logo, you're scaling, you may want to do a combination of like maybe 60-40, like, because like, as you guys know, it's easier to keep a client and to upsell a client that was already using you than get a new one. And then as you're like maturing, maybe it's like a 50-50 split, where you're, you kind of have like a, now at this point you're segmenting, you have like a renewals team, and you have like a kind of account management team. And then you might have like a hunter team that goes out and gets new logos. But like at that point, you're like probably a unicorn, or on your way to a unicorn, and you've got like, a really good system in place. But I'm an early stage guy, so I'm like a 0 to 1 kind of guy. I'm like a round, B round guy, and I usually get people in good positions. And at OpenSpace, I stayed till D, but like I like the chaos of like an early stage company where there's lots of moving pieces. And
why does it excite you?
I don't know. Like, I think it's because of like, we're building the rocket ship as it's going on. It's like dynamic. It's like, there's lots of things going on. There's like things that are breaking as you're moving fast, and like, you're solving those problems, you're fixing it, you're building process. I'm actually a really process oriented guy. I think that's another reason why I'm so good in sales, is I'm highly like detail oriented, and I'm like very efficient with process. And I believe in like building scalable systems. And so I'm always looking at ways to like make this better and make it more efficient, and using my lean background. I'm an engineer as well. Like that's what I studied. And so like, I'm always, trying to figure it out for companies. And then, I've done it so many times now. I've kind of got a pattern in place where I knows what works and what doesn't work. And so, but I'm learning things every day, and if you're not, then you're not growing, basically. So, but that's why I like early stage companies, is you get a lot of autonomy, and you get a lot of responsibility, and you get a lot of, you see your impact more directly, I think.
Quick last one from me would be, what makes a great salesperson?
Yeah, for me, I mean, that's easy. Like it really comes down to like, hungry, humble, smart. And there's a lot of other traits that go along with the hungry, humble, smart. I think in startup world, you got to be resilient. And you got to be persistent, and you got to have an entrepreneurial spirit, right? Because like, especially in sales in general, and I think small company, large company, like we get rejected so many times throughout the day. Like we get a lot of no's, right? So like that resilience is so important. And for you to like stay the path, and to like remain confident in your abilities and the value that you're bringing, during the sales process, you got to have a thick skin, and you got to have this ability to like, stay with it. A friend and mentor of mine, Kevin Halter, always uses this phrase, fire in the belly. And so I've stolen it. I give him credit most of the time for it, but
we'll
like,
tell him. We're speaking to him in 2 weeks.
Yeah, he's great. He's man, he's an amazing individual and leader. So he I've stolen that phrase because it really encapsulates what you're looking for, is because you can't teach drive. You can't teach, like me working till 1 a.m. last night to get those proposals out, and to like, follow up on emails and make sure I'm staying on top of it. Like I can teach all the other stuff, like the mechanisms of running like an enterprise sales cycle, multi-threading, like developing, implicating pain, like driving it through the pipeline stages and velocity. And I can even teach construction and workflows in construction, but you can't teach drive, and you can't teach coachability. Like, I mean, like people are coachable with a growth mindset, or they think they know everything. And my good friend Damon Lemby wrote this book, Learn It All Leader, which you guys should have him on your podcast. Great guy. And he talks about what are the elements of a learn it all leader, and, how you create that growth mindset to constantly be evolving and learning, and, and working on a team and being resourceful. So I think all those things are important, in the process, and just remaining positive, I think, and being like really, because we deal with a lot of rejection, you got to have an optimistic outlook on life. And I mean, my last name is Feliz. It means happy in Spanish.
Muy bueno. Muy bien. Muy bueno. Muy bien.
Muy bien. Muy
Tom,
bien.
the last one from me would be, at what point founding founder team should look into getting head of go-to-market or sales?
I don't know. This is like gonna talk against me, I guess, in a way. Founders should lead sales for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that founders in this industry, and I'll take ConTech, but I'll take just startup world in general, is that they raise a bunch of money and then there's expectations from their board or their investors that they need to grow, scale. And then what they tend to do is they tend to outsource this responsibility of like VP of sales or CRO or growth, like very early on. And you can still do that. Like you just got to have someone like who's scrappy. Like I was the third hire at OpenSpace, right? Jeevan hired me like pretty early on, but like Jeevan also stayed close to the customer for that first year. Like he was in a lot of sales meetings, and Tiago is the exact same way. You know, the CEO of DataGrid right now. Like they're hearing the customer, they're hearing their pain points, they're iterating on the product, they're responding accordingly. Because if you just outsource your sales, you know, and just be like, hey, that's what they do now. They handle it. You know, I'm doing CEO level stuff. I'm like trying to raise more money. I'm trying, which is important. But then they lose contact with the customer and their problems and their needs. Like as a founder, I would say you should try to like stay as close to the sales process as possible for as long as possible. And like, obviously in the growth phases and the scale phases, like you need to like trust in your people and like hire like appropriately. But, you know, Jeevan will always tell me like, oh, I think we waited too long, you know, for, you know, to do this like at OpenSpace. Cause I don't think we brought in a VP of sales to like 2.5 or years into me working there. I was like, no, Jeevan, we did it just the right way. Because I don't think the product would be where it's at today. And as many customers as if you and Mike and Philip and all the engineers didn't stay as close to this as possible to build something that is truly meaningful for their customers. And I think Tiago is taking a very smart approach with this, because we can go out and hire 10 or 12 salespeople tomorrow and try to do the numbers game with like, oh yeah, we need this much in sales. Okay, what's the quota of the guy? Okay, let's just add, you know, people to it and solve the problem. Like, especially in this new world of agentic, I think that's going to go away altogether. I don't think you need massive sales teams anymore. Like, you know, I think a lot of it can be solved with agentic AI. So anyway, yeah.
On that note,
yeah.
Shall we? Oh, well, we'll have to wrap up because of time. But
yeah,
Tom,
yeah, absolutely. It was a real pleasure, guys. Thanks again. And I know we didn't get into pricing and packaging or whatever, you know, and the complexity of this sales, but I think we covered a lot. So thank you again, and
for sure.
Yeah,
you know,
we'll keep it for the next one.
To chatting with you guys more. See you guys in San Francisco soon, right? In June?
Hopefully, yes.
Excellent. Yeah. I'll be over in London in July, so I'll see you guys.
Let us
there.
know.
We'll meet up in person.
100%.
Excellent.
Cool, man.
Thanks again, gentlemen.
Thanks, Tom.